got too many.
Hey, I'm PH and welcome to Good Bible Knowledge with PhD. In this set of videos, I want to answer common questions about the Bible in a fun and creative way, and I hope these videos will be helpful in your own spiritual journey in Jesus. Let's get started. Who is Jeremiah? During the 13th year of King Josiah's reign, God raised up a prophet, Jeremiah, to bring God's word to his people. Jeremiah's ministry would extend throughout the reign of Josiah, continuing through the reigns of Josiah's sons, Jehoahaz, Jehoiakim, Jehoiakim, and Zedekiah. Jeremiah was given the unenviable task of bringing God's message of judgment to the nation of Judah. For generation after generation, God had extended his grace and mercy to his people, yet Judah continued to choose to abandon him in pursuit of other gods. In order to prepare Jeremiah for his monumental task, God said, "Before you were born, I have already set you apart to be a prophet to the nations. You must do everything I command you, and I will make you an iron pillar of strength. Though the entire nation will fight against you, they will not prevail, for I, the Lord, am with you." Jeremiah would need such affirmation as God's message would be ill-received by the people. In the hearing of the people, Jeremiah proclaimed, "Israel was God's beloved nation, holy unto the Lord, whom the Lord delivered out of captivity in Egypt and settled in a land of great promise. And yet you have forsaken God and gone after other idols." And though God extended his mercy over and over again, the time of judgment was now at hand. God was raising up a ruthless people from the north, the nation of Babylon, and this nation would be God's instrument of judgment upon the sin of Judah. When King Josiah died, his son Jehoahaz became king. Within 3 months, Jehoahaz was removed from his throne by Pharaoh Necho of Egypt and replaced by Josiah's second son, Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim was a wicked king who filled the land with violence, apostasy, and moral degradation. When Babylon defeated the Egyptian forces at Carchemish, Jehoiakim became the vassal of Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon. 3 years later, in 601 BC, Jehoiakim rebelled against Babylon, and Nebuchadnezzar responded by marching against Judah and besieging the city of Jerusalem. During this time, Jehoiakim died, and he was succeeded by his son, Jehoiakim. Jehoiakim surrendered to the armies of Nebuchadnezzar, and he was deported to Babylon along with thousands of residents from Jerusalem, including a certain young man named Daniel and his 3 friends. The city itself was spared, and Nebuchadnezzar replaced Jehoiakim with Josiah's 3rd son, Zedekiah, who would be the last king of the southern kingdom of Judah. Zedekiah was 21 when he became king, and he continued the wicked reign of Jehoiakim. God continued to bring his message of judgment through the prophet Jeremiah, but Zedekiah chose instead to listen to the words of his advisors, who falsely predicted victory for Jerusalem. As a result, Jeremiah suffered greatly as God's faithful servant. He was beaten, put in the stocks, threatened with death, thrown in prison, and cast into an empty well. But the greatest suffering of Jeremiah was his grief over his people. Jeremiah was nicknamed the Weeping Prophet as he continued to weep over the sin and rebellion of his people. From a political standpoint, Jeremiah's message was very bleak, but from a spiritual standpoint, God made it clear that Jerusalem would always have a future. Babylon would besiege Jerusalem a second time, and this time it would devastate the land. Nebuchadnezzar would burn the temple and take the remaining people captive for 70 years, and these events could not be avoided. However, God promised his people that even amidst this great suffering, he still had a plan for his people. God promised when the 70 years were finished, he would bring his people back from their exile and make a new covenant with them. God would then create a new heart within his people, and the land would once more enjoy bounty and blessing. And out of the death and debris of a ruined city would spring new life and hope. What can we learn from the ministry of Jeremiah? The Bible makes it clear that God is a loving God filled with grace and mercy. God is also holy and just, and his warnings of judgment are not to be trifled with. God warns us even now that the wages of sin is death, and ultimately all creation will be brought before his final judgment over the wickedness of sin. And just as Zedekiah, we are faced with a choice. Will we choose to hold to a false hope of our own wishful thinking, or will we choose to take hold of the only true hope of salvation in Jesus? If we are willing to confess our sin, believe that Jesus, the Son of God, died on the cross for our sin and rose from the dead, we will be saved. Thanks for listening to another episode of Good Bible Knowledge. We'll see you next time.